Well, good evening, Reverend Deborah Phillips.
It's good to be up here with you today. Would you like to pray us in?
You want to say something about the...
Well, we'll talk about that after you pray us in. We got to get centered first.
Good. Let's just put our feet flat on the floor for a moment. Close your eyes if you're willing to, and just be in this moment. Just be in this moment of knowing that new information, new knowledge, new understanding, new faith is coming into us this evening, coming from a place that we don't know at present, coming from a place that we don't need to know. All we need to know is that it's filling us, it's a part of us, and it will remain in us for us to use, for us to know, for us to acknowledge, and for us to be. And with that understanding, together we say, and so it is.
Thank you, Donna. So, Donna and I have decided that we wanted to talk about the 12 powers. Now, the 12 powers is a teaching, it's kind of a philosophy, I guess, in a way, that is rooted in unity. And Charles Fillmore actually wrote the book, The 12 Powers of Man, and he got it from Emma Curtis Hopkins. Now, she is considered the mother of New Thought, and she taught almost everybody who ever started. Fillmore studied with her, Ernest Holmes studied with her, he was her last student. I mean, there's a lot of, and she actually had her own version of the 12 powers, which, as I was showing Reverend Donna a little bit earlier, was much more complicated, and she had a lot more aspects to it. He came along and he streamlined it, and he, made it, I think, fit to the unity philosophy very, very well. And so it's really just a description of 12 attributes that we carry within us that we can use to enhance our lives. And they don't, we were talking earlier too, is like, you wouldn't probably want to try to use all 12 of them at once. One of them is going to resonate with you more than the other. So but it's interesting to talk about them and talk about them in different ways. So the book he wrote is good, but of course, life has moved on since 1920 or 30 something when he wrote the book. So we decided that we want to just kind of talk about the 12 powers tonight. We're going to talk about 3 at a time. We're going to do 4 sessions and see where it takes us. We have no script here. We're just going to play and see what happens. And then at the end, we will open it up to questions. And remind us to do that because we get a little carried away up here. So, I think we should just sort of take off with this and see what happens. The ones that we're doing tonight, and the order in which we're doing them is different than the way Fillmore ordered them. Linda Martello-Wetzel wrote a book called Divine Audacity a few years ago, and it is a book on the 12 powers, and it's probably more readable than Fillmore at this point, just because of the language.
Most things are.
Yes, but she put them in slightly different order because she put them in the order in which they actually appear in our bodies. And I forgot to bring in the image that we have of that. It's probably sitting in my car. But we'll have that for you next week. But the idea is that instead of just the 7 chakras, we have these power points in our body. And so we will be starting with the ones that in our head. So we're talking tonight, first of all, about faith, understanding, and will. So what you got there, lady?
Well, for one thing, we know them as the 12 powers of man. But the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to rename them the 12 amorphous intangibles. Because there's nothing here that you can really grasp. There's nothing here that you can really put a finger on. There's nothing here that you can really say, I'm going to go out and get me some faith. I'm going to go out and get me some understanding. It's nothing like that. It doesn't work that way. So we're dealing with these things that are difficult to define and certainly not something that we can reach out and touch, which makes it simultaneously entertaining, amusing, impossible, and glorious. All at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really fun. Faith. Faith. Wow. Let's start with something easy. Faith. What is that? It's intuition. It's belief. Understanding is a different one of the 12, but there is a certain understanding that we have with faith as well. And there is a glorious, wonderful intuition about faith as well. So right from the beginning, we know we have something that's ridiculously difficult to define, and yet we all know when we feel faith. We all know when we have faith. We all know when we've lost faith and when we want to reestablish faith. So there's something in this amorphousness of faith that's ours to hold, each in our own different ways. But I noticed, too, as I was getting ready for this, somewhere in the writings, faith doesn't land upon us. Faith has to grow within us. It's probably true of all 12 of these, but especially with faith and starting here. The idea that it's a seed, and each one of us might have a different, you might have a chrysanthemum seed growing over there that you call faith. You might have a watermelon seed over here that you call faith. It's growing into something different, coming from a different start, growing into something different for each one of us. But we all recognize it as faith, and we all allow it to grow or stunt its growth as we see fit in any moment.
Yeah, I had a friend who one day, she was really struggling in her life. And one day she said, Deborah, I really want to believe in this stuff. And she didn't say stuff. And I said, the thing is that you haven't had enough experiences with something working to be building that confidence and that faith. As you move through and you have, you pray for something or you work on it, and then just a little thing happens, you go, oh, okay, that's possible. And then the next little thing happens, and then that builds it a little bit more until you start to have some sort of a working, because if it's brand new to you, if you have absolutely no frame of reference for it, how are you going to... And at the same time, most of us have faith whether we know it or not, and we all have faith that in the morning we get up, the sun's going to be shining, or it might be raining, but the sun is still there. So we do have I think a basic faith that we live in and through all the time. Now, I'm pretty sure that when I get up in the morning and I go out in the garage, my car is going to be there and it's going to start, and I'm going to go out and do my day. And when that doesn't happen, it doesn't really break my faith because I'm dealing with material things. So it's when we're dealing with the invisible, I think, that is where that is so much more challenging. And I think it's interesting that we've got faith and understanding together, because one of the things that's in some of the writings is faith is awakened within us by letting go of the need to understand all the intricacies of life.
Oh, and then she puts her mic down, and I'm supposed to say something after that.
No, we could have just stared at each other for 30 minutes.
So tell me what you think about faith in terms of spirituality, because you just gave us a lot of great examples of what faith is in other parts of life. Faith that the sun is there, faith that your car is going to start, that it's there in your garage. We have faith in some of the things that are everyday life. What about the faith that we attach to spirituality? How is that different or the same?
Well, for me, and this is, we all have different relationship with these things. For me, faith is a knowing. It's like I just, inside me, in here, in my heart, the deepest part of me, I just know that, first of all, that there's more to me than just this. That there is something bigger and more powerful and more amazing than what's here. I on some level, I just know it, and I don't question it. And so maybe part of the faith part is not questioning, which of course makes me think about what they call blind faith. But truly, any faith would be blind because you can't see. And so that conversation is, you can only have faith in something until you've seen material backing for it. Otherwise, it's blind faith. But real faith would be blind. You don't physically see it or touch it. You know, you feel it, you know it. It's part of you, and maybe that's it. Maybe for me, faith is part of me. That's just how I go through the world. I know that I'm not alone. I know that no matter what's going on, there is something bigger, just bigger, and there's a light that comes in and is with me. And I just know that, whether I can see it or not. Or those days when I'm going, where are you guys? You know, because we all have those days. And I had a little interesting thing happen the other day. I got up and I was looking for something and I could not find it in the house. And I went, okay, I need to know where this is. And I went in and was doing something in the kitchen and I got a little picture in my head of where it was and I went out and it was right there. And so, you know, you could call that psychic or clairvoyant or whatever, but really that's just my faith, my knowing, my understanding that there's no separation between us and whatever you want to call that. You know, God is such a limiting term sometimes.
Yeah, that big thing that's bigger than us. Yeah, I have that sometimes when I, not necessarily finding something in the house, although it is sometimes, but finding something in me that I'm looking for, that I can't quite find. It's like, okay, I don't know what's going on right now, but someone somehow does. And if I have faith in that, then I will find the way. Yeah, part of my morning routine is just that message to myself, that the path is clear. And if I get out of my own way or have faith, then all of those answers are there for me.
And maybe the other part of that is just simply having the faith that the answers are there. It's like I don't have to understand in this moment what's going on, and I don't have to fix it because in truth I can't fix it. And so the let go, let God type of thinking is not a denial thing. It's just like, what can I do? You know, what action can I take? I take the action I can take, and then I have to just let it be. And just know.
So that let it be piece is a big portion of faith, a big definition of faith.
It is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you're, the minute you say, you know, hey, here, God, I'm giving this to you, and then about 5 minutes later you take it back. I know nobody in this room has ever done that. I'm just saying that it's happened.
We've heard about people who do that.
We've heard about people who've done that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, give it back to me. And that's where the faith part comes in, is being able to live in that ambiguity. Deepak Chopra, who I've read very little of, actually, he says that being able to live with ambiguity is a mark of spiritual maturity.
Mm-hmm. There's also in the Fillmore tradition, there are the concepts of inner knowing and inner hearing that are considered part of faith. How do you see those?
Well, I mean, faith is an inside job, isn't it?
I suppose it is.
You know, you can't get faith from the outside. You can build your confidence by witnessing successes. We'll put it that way. But there are people I know who would watch good thing after good thing after good thing happen and still not have faith, not have that inner knowing, that inner confidence that all is well.
So it's an inside job on that level too. We talked earlier about how it has to grow within us,
Yeah.
but we have to acknowledge it too once it starts to grow.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it dies on the vine.
It does. I mean, you know, it has to be nurtured,
Mm-hmm.
as anything else.
How do we best nurture it?
Probably by by taking the time to go within, by taking the time to really connect with that inner part of you that's never been touched by the outside world. You know, I've known people who were very reluctant or almost unable to become self-reflective. And I realized that why that happens is they're afraid to go look within because they're afraid of finding one of two things. They're afraid that they're going to find that there's nothing there, or they're afraid that they're going to find that they're a terrible, horrible person. So when you find someone who doesn't want to look within, please don't judge them, because I think they're just terrified of what they might or might not find, you know. And so learning to looking within doesn't mean looking at seeing what your mind is doing. It's really looking at what your heart is doing. What is my heart doing? What is my heart saying? What is my heart afraid of? What does my heart love? And when you connect on that level, then you can very well start to become more of a honestly believer, because faith, we could do like 25 minutes on faith and belief. But belief to me has a bit of an intellectual aspect to it, and faith is not intellectual at all.
You said something right at the beginning of that really struck me, that part of us that's inside that has never been touched by the outside world. And it feels like that's where faith lives.
That's the only place it could live. Yeah, I mean, that's because faith is clean and pure, and it's not, there's no veils over it. It's not wearing sunglasses. It's just there.
But how many of us in this room have ever considered that part that's inside of us that has never been touched by the outside world? I mean, we all know it's there. Now that she said it, if we're all like, oh yeah, that part. But until we sit down and explore that part and really know where it is, then maybe we haven't really captured, or captured's the wrong word, we haven't really touched faith.
But where is it?
Do we need to know?
Well, I mean, you just said where it is. The thing is that when you go within, you're not going into your physical body, are you? You're going within the energies.
Right.
And so all I know is I can go within and I can find a place within me. See, we always have to make it geographical, right? And there's one of my favorite things is there's no geography in consciousness. So, but when you turn away from the outside world into the energetic world, let's phrase it like that, then you will find this part that you identify as you that has not been touched by the outside world. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
But we don't need to know where it is. We just need to know that it is and that we have touched it.
When we're worrying about where it is, we are dealing with the material world. We're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's faith.
So then we go to understanding, which is, also in the same part of the brain. I mean, these power centers. And understanding is absolutely necessary for us, because what's the most important thing is we need to make meaning, right? We need to understand what's going on.
Do we really need to understand what's going on in a conscious way, or is that something that's beyond consciousness?
We need to understand the material world so we can make our way around it. And I think there's we just spent, 10 minutes talking about faith, trying to understand it.
And now we're understanding.
Well, because everything we do, we're always making meaning. Everything that we do, we're making meaning. And because it has to make sense. It has to make sense. It has to make sense for me to get up and walk over there to go down the steps. I have to know how to get from here to there. So there's that understanding of the material world, but there's also an understanding of how the internal world works. And it's going to be similar but completely different.
Yeah, because on the spiritual level, it's not knowledge. Understanding is not knowledge. We have knowledge, but that's different than understanding. But it does give us something to stand on. If we have understanding of the physical world, the material world, and of our spiritual selves, then we have something to stand on to reach all the other powers.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I mean, last time we were talking and you said something about Deborah's talking about quantum physics. I'm not going to go there, but the fact that we have all these scientists trying so hard to find the ultimate building block, or the ultimate, what the particle that makes us. And I have a feeling that it's just going to keep getting smaller and smaller, and they could just go on forever. And, but they're trying to make sense of what's going on here. And so understanding is necessary, and we can get so wrapped up in trying to understand something that we lose the meaning.
But it does require questioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can lose the meaning, but in order to understand, in order to have understanding, we do have to question everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many spiritual traditions allow us to question and encourage us to question, and how many don't. How many actually discourage that questioning. Oh, so much nodding going on in this room right now because you've all experienced that. But it says so much about what the traditions value and what they value in us when we recognize who allows and supports questioning and who doesn't. We learn a lot about our environment of spirituality as well as our internal.
And the really fascinating part to me is the people who come here having been in some place, in another environment where they were not allowed to question. It's such a fun, amazing thing to watch them learn to ask, because it's not something they were allowed to do. And what I've witnessed is as they begin to learn to ask questions, their faith starts to build. And their understanding starts to build, because it's like, oh, now I have, because understanding is one way of gaining knowledge, but of course knowledge can just be there as well. But if we don't, if it doesn't mean anything to us, it's useless to us. Many years ago, I'm probably thinking 10, maybe 10, 12 years ago, just before I started here at SLC, I realized that whatever I was doing, and I did not know what I was doing at the time, I was trying to figure it out. I realized that unless whatever I gave out for people, if they couldn't relate to it, it was useless. And so it really changed the way I taught, the way I spoke, and the more I have worked here and the more I have given Sunday talks, the more I am using real life examples, and I'm trying to just put out there, I'm talking about something completely invisible, and here are some concrete examples of how that might work, but it's still going to be invisible. And that's because if you don't relate to it, what good is it? Can't use it.
Ministers are experts, or at least teachers of the invisible.
You're right, we are.
Yeah. There's also a definition of understanding that it is seeing beyond appearances into reality.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't make it up, but I'll take credit for it.
And of course, and then of course, what is reality? I mean, there's the big R reality, and then there's the little R reality.
Well, I think because we're talking about the 12 powers, it's
yeah.
probably a spiritual reality.
A spiritual reality, yeah. You know, because being able to look at something and then see past the appearance into what may really be, you know, yeah. And that's an interesting thing, is seeing past appearances. That takes faith, and it takes understanding, and it also takes rising above will.
Yes, it does.
Or using your will properly, which we'll get to, but
We'll get to that in a minute. But if we just take that phrase of seeing beyond appearances and into reality, if you take that with you, it just changes everything you look at. You're not going to see the bridge that you drive over the same way anymore. You're not going to see a street light the same way anymore. You're not going to see your roommate or your spouse or that chair the same way anymore. It just changes absolutely everything. Again, quantum theory at work, but it changes everything to know that you are now going to look at things beyond appearances and into reality. It's a nice little exercise to take with you tonight and play with.
so what happens for you when you do something like that? So you go out and you look at something and you're seeing beyond the bridge. If you're seeing beyond the bridge, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? What's that like for you?
Childlike wonder. But childlike wonder, it has a beautiful spirituality to it too. Children see the reality of things in a way that I have forgotten how to see. And if I can look beyond that appearance and relive that childlike wonder, then everything is fresh and everything is new, and I'm probably seeing the reality of it just in its freshness.
So are you seeing the reality of this amazing thing that someone built? Are you seeing the reality of all of these atoms arranged in a certain way to create this thing?
Yes, and I'm also seeing the reality of how nice it is that I can cross that river and not have to swim through it.
Okay, then. Yeah.
Really, I mean, all of those things go beyond the appearances of just driving over a bridge. All of a sudden, you see the whole reason for the bridge. And if you can see the whole reason for the bridge, then you can see the whole reason for the dog and the kitchen and everything. You start seeing beyond everything that's in front of you that you've taken for granted so far.
And you can see I think the people who built the bridge, and then the people who decided to build the bridge, and then all the meetings that had to happen to come up with how to build the bridge, and then where the materials came from. I mean, there's this whole, it's a whole, it's not just that thing sitting there. It's an entire, it's an entire activity.
Yeah.
It's sort of everything's just an activity sitting right in front of you.
It is, and we're talking about it in a very material world way. But if we look at the wonder of what this is and the spirituality behind that bridge in its own way, then we get the picture and we start to be able to see how that plays out in every other part of life. And then life becomes more amazing again.
I think about this probably more often than I should, but it's like, I think I was talking to somebody today, is we start out as one cell. We start out as a cell, and then the cells start to divide, and there's more cells and there's more cells, and then all of those are made out of exactly the same thing. But now, how does this one cell know it's going to become a lung? And this cell knows it's going to become a hand. And this cell knows it's going to be a heart. And this cell, I mean, when you start looking at it, yes, that is bringing it into the material, but the energy that makes our bodies is just miraculously amazing, is because it's all the same stuff in there. And yet it doesn't, okay, I'm going to go off, I'm going to be an arm now. I'm going to be hair. I'm going to be, a foot. How does it know? It's absolutely gloriously fascinating when you start thinking about, and I always see lights, it's like, okay, it's just, but it knows. Absolutely, it knows, and it probably understands what it's supposed to do. But when I think about that, that's one of the things that brings me back to faith, is because there is no explaining that. I mean, yeah, the scientists might try, but there's no explaining how that happens.
This whole concept of seeing beyond appearances into reality is also really handy. No matter when you're listening to this or viewing this, I am sure that you can consider that the last 2 weeks of your life, the news cycle has been mind-blowing. That's true as we sit in this room, but that's true of every 2 weeks of your lifetime. The news cycle is always mind-blowing. But if you can look beyond appearances of what you're seeing and hearing and reading about in the news cycle, look beyond that to the reality of faith and who we are and who other people are and what the situation in the world is. You need that different perspective in order to be a real person. And you need that other perspective in order to see reality. So that's another reason to explore that, looking beyond appearances into reality. Instead of ignoring what's happening around us, understand it. And look for that reality in a way that you can understand just a little bit of who those people are and what their situation is. That's the essence of why we're here. Not to turn it off or turn away from it, but to understand it.
And the fact is that, life goes on no matter what. I mean, there's probably people in this room who have had a loved one die, pass on, and you're in the middle of the grief and the dealing with everything, and the cars are still driving by your house, and there's people out there just, life is still going on. And when I'm feeling disturbed about some particular incident or whatever, I have to remember that there is a much, much, much bigger picture, and that it continues, and it continues on. One of the best ones that I have right now that I think about is that people have been concerned that SLC, we are not as big as we were before the pandemic, that there's not as many people coming. And yet, during the pandemic, many, many churches closed, and they will not open again. We are back up to 135, 40 people coming every Sunday. We're still here. And so it's not that, so every time that conversation happens with the people who are kind of fearful, and it's like, you know what, we're still here, life is continuing on, and so that faith is I know that we're just going to continue. We have some sort of momentum, and this is one of the best examples right now. The average Unity Church is like 40, I think around 40 people, and then there's the next ones up in the 60s. Where we are, we're actually a big church, and so I just use that example because it's all about appearances. I see us as this light that continues to burn, and we're burning brighter because we're here and we're doing our thing. We're doing, we have faith. The people in this congregation have faith that we are here for a reason. They believe in this organization. And so that is why we are still here. And you can sit there and you can look at the numbers and you can look at this, but the truth is, it's the faith and the understanding of what we're really here for that keeps us here and keeps us going.
It's that big picture with all of this. I mean, we're digging into what some of these 12 powers mean 3 at a time, but really we're all talking about the big picture of how these fit into our lives. And that's a very good example of that.
Yeah, and as we talk through these, we will have a couple of handouts for you next week. But it's like, think about, as we talk about each one, which one resonates with you, because you're going to find one or two that you really relate to. And the truth is if you work with them, all the others start to blossom as well. And if you try to deal with all 12 at once, you'll go bonkers. So, I mean, because it weakens the energy.
I don't need bonkers.
No, we got enough bonkers in the world as it is. But The third one, are you ready to go on to
Our
will?
third amorphous intangible for this evening is will.
And let's see, a willful person. How many people were a willful child? That wasn't a good thing.
It wasn't just that you raised your hands. You all did something to act it out there for a moment. It was beautiful to watch.
But,
Will.
Yeah. So what's your take on will?
It's how we know that we should make decisions. It's how we make choices. If we didn't have will, we couldn't decide on anything. I wouldn't know what to wear. I wouldn't know how to get here. I wouldn't know how to drive over that bridge that we were talking about a few minutes. So it's necessary in the material world because it gets us where we're going and helps us to make decisions. But from a spiritual perspective, I think it has a lot more to do with resilience. I think it has a lot more to do with how we make our way through. I was thinking about I don't know why it's attributed to Willie Nelson, but it is the comment that grief is not something you get around, it's something you get through. I'm sure he's not the only person who said that, but he gets credit for it. That resilience is will, that ability to get through a war zone or a death or whatever it is that's in front of us. We're always getting through something. The resilience is will.
So if you go, will is the executive power of the mind. It is a point from which all action comes forth. While other faculties are subjective, will is objective and alert. And so we have these two, we've got our faith and we've got our understanding, which are really subjective. And then we come along with our will that stands back and goes, okay, I can do this. And how can I do this? And this is the way we're going to take action. I'm taking everything that I understand. I'm taking my faith, and I'm going to I'm going to move forward with it. This is my will is going to, get me across that bridge. I understand how to get across that bridge.
Now here's a question for you.
Okay.
Will can backfire on you very easily. Will can be judgment, like that.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that spiritually?
Well, it's the whole thing of understanding that will is your power to act. When you start getting into being willful or obstinate, actually it's basically I want my own way. When we start becoming, so it's that backing into your faith and understanding and saying, I don't like what's going on right now, and I really want it to change because I want my own way, but I know that there's something higher and better for me. And so I'm going to take the steps I need to do to open myself up to the next best thing.
It's such a fine line. How would you advise that we see the difference, and how would you advise that we take action so that we don't slip into judgment?
First of all, stop trying to fix things, everybody. You're not going to fix anything. It's just fixing doesn't work. Acknowledging what's going on and saying, okay, this is where we're here right now, and it is what it is. I know people say that, and in truth, it is what it is. But you don't stop there. Okay, for me, what I do is I say, okay, what can I do, and what is mine to do? I think that's the big question: is what is mine to do, and then sometimes the answer is there's nothing you can do. You just need to wait. I had a friend back I was in my 20s, and I was doing the girl thing of calling and complaining to my friend about something. And I was trying to make a decision, and she finally said, Deborah, she said, there's only 3 answers: yes, no, and wait.
Yes, no, and wait?
Yeah. And that slammed me up against the wall for a while. And like 50 years later, I'm still talking about it, because that is the reality. Is sometimes there is action to take. Sometimes there is no action to take at all, and sometimes you just wait until you know what action to take. But that means taking a step back, sitting down in the chair and going, okay, and going back to your faith and, saying, show me. Show me. Show me the place. Show me. Leonard Cohen has this great song called Show Me the Place. And that's actually how I ended up at SLC, is because I was ordained. I didn't know what to do. I'm an orphan, because I'm an independent New Thought minister, and I had no idea. And so for 2 years, I walked around going, show me the place, show me the place, show me the place. And I got shown the place. What the place got shown to me, I don't know. But we came together. So sometimes, and at the same time, I had to use my will to move myself forward. But every time you try to force something, it's just going to, it's either going to, nothing's going to happen, or something, is going to fall apart. Whenever we're trying to force something, whenever we're trying to fix something, it ain't going to work, folks.
Yeah, that was interesting. Right at the beginning of that, you equated fixing to judgment. So that's a good way for us to identify when we're slipping into judgment. As soon as we feel the need to fix something, or want to fix something, or want to say, I know how this could be better, or why don't you, then we're slipping out of spiritual will and into material judgment.
And we do it to other people, but we also do it to ourselves.
No.
We
do it to ourselves.
Yeah, and I didn't want to tell you this because I didn't want to wreck your evening, but
Oh, man.
But we do it to ourselves, and we probably do it to ourselves more than we do it to other people.
No doubt.
Because it's like, well, it's just, it's not good enough. And of course we live in a world that has, at least in the United States, I have not traveled outside the United States to any degree, so I can't tell you what other people are doing, but we have this perfection thing going in the United States that is so not good for us. And, when the Fillmores and the Holmes and all of those metaphysical teachers say it's perfect in this moment, the way they were using the word then and the way we hear it now is so completely different.
The word perfect?
Yeah. Perfect back then meant it's exactly right the way it is right now. Perfect now means absolutely no flaws, and nobody is ever going to be able to judge me or find anything wrong with me, because, we are so wrapped up in having to be perfect in this country. And the social media isn't helping at this point. And that's not what it is. If it's perfect in this moment, it just means it's exactly what I need right now. And that might change in 2 seconds. But, and of course, everything does change. And maybe that's another place where faith comes in, is because I can start out my day in one direction, and then bammo, it goes another direction. And I need to have the faith and the understanding to know that it's still going to be okay. And use my will correctly. Use it correctly.
So I have to ask now about correctly, since we had to ask about perfect.
Well, okay. You asked earlier about will can turn on you, and it can be, you can become very willful and controlling and pushy and trying to fix everything.
Not me personally, but
No. I would never, ever. Of course not. But it's like you're trying to open a bottle, and the lid is stuck, and you try to force it, and then you just give up, and you go, and then you just open it. Mm-hmm. It's it's that stepping back, it's that letting go, and then coming at it from a different angle. I don't know where that came from, but that's what it is. It's that letting go and coming at it from a different angle.
It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else about will have we not discussed?
Let's see if there's a...
Because it sounds so simple so far, and I know it can't be. Or is it?
Well, this says that by releasing personal will, we release inner conflict, clearing the path ahead. Because if I'm being willful, then if I'm being willful, I'm in resistance. So maybe one way of using the right use of will is to not be resistant. And not want, we all want what we want. We all want it our own way. I get it. We want to be comfortable. We want to feel safe. That's all normal stuff. But being able to live in some level of ambiguity actually gets us farther along the road.
I think I'm saying less about will because I must need to learn more about it. It's usually how it goes, right? Although a lot of people spout off on topics that they don't know anything about.
Well, I might be talking about it because I was such a willful child. I've had to learn about.
Perhaps that's it.
Yeah. Where
Do
are
we want to
on
take
time?
some questions?
Yeah, let's take some. Anybody have any questions?
And we have a microphone to
Yeah,
run
and
around
please
with you.
wait for the
Patty has
microphone.
that.
Yeah, because we're live streaming this, and the people on, if you don't use the microphone, they cannot hear you.
Who has a question? I know. Come on. I know you have questions.
No, but you can, Patty.
Maureen.
So I'm going to say WTF, thy will be done. So it's a conundrum, but when I use WTF every day, I mean, what the faith? And I wake up and I look around and I just say, because I was a willful child, but not a disruptive child. And I was the oldest, so I got away with a lot of stuff because I was in charge. So when I say thy will be done, it's thy will, my will, our will, and, so be it. And to go back to your prayer, Donna, when you got us settled, there's a lot of not knowing. And I think that that's where the magic is. I think that's where I am most creative, most courageous, most playful. And it's hard when you're dealing with a to-do list. I still have a to-do list from moving. And every day I'm getting anxious about, okay, I get to cross something else off that I've got to take care of because I'm in a new space and this is like, whoa, WTF. How did this happen?
Yeah, not knowing, and I mentioned that in a previous session too, that was Rabbi David Azen taught me that, the ability to say, I don't know, because he reminds himself of that all the time. And it was really in the top 5 most important lessons of my life to be able to say, I don't know. That is where the magic is. And that's where spirit is. Thanks, Maureen. Paul has a question.
You never know what you're going to get when Paul speaks. Okay, I'm hearing these powers. The first one I heard was faith. And trust me, believe me, I have a concept of an idea of creating a healthcare plan. Trust me, believe me. And I believe what I'm saying. I have my faith that I can do this. I'm not getting political. But somebody else gives up their own faith in themselves and their own power. It's like they're surrendering their own power to somebody else. I just thought you might want to address that because I find that happens to me when it doesn't have to be that person, but you know who I'm talking about. But it could be anyone that's, trust me, it's like, oh, okay, I've given up my own faith for someone else's idea. Where does my faith lie? I got to go back to that. Mentioning somewhere in understanding, I was hearing, I don't know how this came up, but to understand other people's opinions and ideas about things is cool. Some people believe that life starts at birth, life starts at conception, and if it starts at conception, we are all females at that time. So with that understanding, Maureen, I intend to attend the women's retreat. I'm just kidding. That we're all identifying as female. I'm just saying. But, you know, it's a weird way of looking at things. But I back off and have my own understanding that allow other people to have theirs. And it sounds like opinions. Somewhere there's a fine line between opinions and understanding. The last thing, my will versus thy will. I was hearing the Lord's Prayer, Matthew 6, and I will sometimes get in my own way, and when I get in my own way and I have my will and I think I'm being willful and being spiritual, I am trying to control rather than let go of the ego, and I know I have caused myself issues and ended up in the dark night. Just wanted to comment on that. Sometimes expressing that willpower, having that will, doesn't mean grasping onto things that I cannot control. Watch my pronouns. That's all I have to say. I am complete.
Thank you, Paul. And I think, again, we have to have will in order to, I have to be willing to get up, or have will to get up out of the chair and walk around. I mean, we have to have that motivating force to move and get things done. And thank you for their comments, because first of all, you're hilarious, Paul. But the whole thing of having faith in yourself, we're going to be talking about power. Power is one of the powers, and Reverend Donna was saying a little earlier. She says, "Why is power a power?" And then we came to some.
We have an answer, but not this week.
Right, not this week. But I think when we do give ourselves up to some other person's idea, we lose faith in ourselves. And maybe to bring the whole thing back, full circle, is that when we're talking about faith, we're talking about the faith in the great unknown. We'll just call it that, the great mystery of life. But at the same time, when we are going to that place within us, that is when we have faith in ourselves. Not our physical selves, but our self. I always write self with a capital S. That self. We have faith in ourselves. So.
I also love all of the examples that you brought up, Paul, because on the one hand, Maureen used the word conundrum, and that's tempting to use. You had several of them, so I guess that's conundra. I don't know, for sure. But what is conundrum other than opportunity? And so what you just laid out with what happens when I give up my faith in what I believe in because this other person says, trust me, and so on down the line with the examples you gave, that's the beauty of the dance we get to do with each other. We get to do it with our spouses, our partners, our close friends, and then we get to do the bigger circle and the bigger circle in the world, but it's still the same dance, and it's still finding that sweet spot between where we agree and where we disagree, and where we have it. But that's what faith is, and that's what understanding is. Maybe will, not so much, but faith and understanding are part of that beautiful dance that we get to do every day. And aren't we fortunate to be able to do it and find each other in it?
Okay, one more. Yes.
Faith and blind faith. I don't have blind faith because I thought, I was led to unity in a way that was, serendipitous, and then I thought I had faith, but then, I was almost homeless, and it was 3 times, and by the 3rd time it was like, it's going to be taken care of. I got to do my work. I do my footwork, The first time it was just a crisis, and the 2nd time it was like, it was, but the 3rd time it was just like, to do what I got to do, and it's going to work out. It has every other time, and I try to remember that, with the faith, and that's the, bedrock faith that I have of the power and what some people call God, and then, so I was taking some classes in unity, and we were reading this book, and I had this understanding, and I believed that this was the truth of whatever, and so we were reading it, and we were making comments and stuff, and I was trying to explain to this person what the truth was, and when you were talking, I'm just coming to realize, whose truth was that? I mean, there is the basic kind of thing that we're trying, idea, but people have different truths, and it's like, I was like, wow, I was judging. you know, and because I thought I knew what was right, and everybody's truth is different. Can be.
Well, I mean, the thing is that we do have, each has our own truth and our own faith and our own beliefs, and it's a matter of whether we're judging. And of course, it's so easy to get into judging. And it takes a lot of practice, and even those of us who've been doing this for a while have our moments of being judgy. So, but that's what these lessons are all about. That's what these aspects, you know. I mean, they call them the powers, but they're really all different aspects of the one power that lives and expresses itself through us.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add at the end of this?
I don't. That was such a beautiful ending.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Next week is the birthday bash, and we decided not to, well, actually, neither one of us are available next week. There's that. So the next week is the birthday bash. There will be cake, and it's always delicious. And then the week after that,
That's the 12th. February 12th
February
is when we
12th.
come back.
Yeah, I think, is there a slide up there for that, Liam? I don't remember if I put one up there. But it is March 12th, and we will be back with, what are we doing? Zeal and...
February 12th.
February 12th, yeah. I don't know why. I've skipped a whole month, so, okay. So zeal, and what are the next three? Oh, imagination, zeal, and power are the ones that we're going to talk about.
Imagination, zeal, and power all in one night?
All in one night.
That's going to be so much fun.
I'm starting to think we should extend
And no
this.
conundrums involved.
And also, I'll have a couple of handouts for you that, you know, show where these are supposed to reside in your body. I know it's sitting on the seat of my car.
No doubt.
But thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Reverend Donna,
Thank you.
This is a very spontaneous thing that we're doing here, so we're having fun. And so now it is our opportunity to support Spiritual Life Center. Excuse me. And if you're watching us online, and welcome if you are online, you can text us at SLC Love to 44321, or you can go to our website, slcworld.org, and click on the donate button. And of course, you can always mail in an offering. And we also ask you to click on subscribe or follow or whatever the app asks you to do, because we believe that this is a message that the entire world can benefit from at this time. And the more that you share it, the more it goes out, and the farther this message goes. So we really, really appreciate your support. And so those of us here in the sanctuary, let us bless our offering together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God.
Thank you, 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 thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Pouring down, your love is pouring down. Your love is pouring down. Your love is pouring down.
interesting. So let's take a nice deep breath and say our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds